All right, stand for the pledge, call the meeting to order. Pledge allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. All right, at this time, we're going to do the AOK awards first.
All right, thank you, Mr. Yep, thank you, Mr. Halleck. So the first award I'd like to give is to Miss Amelia Miller. What's amazing about this award for Amelia is that she recognized one of the students in her class who didn't bring a snack for a consecutive number of days, and she went home, asked her parents if she could bring something in and be able to share with that student, and now they share almost every day their snacks. So I cannot thank you enough, Sweetie Pie, for what you've done, and you get a free ice cream cone for your act of kindness, okay? So let's look at Miss Lombardi. Ready? Look over here. Look at Miss Lombardi. All right, look at, oh. Keep up the great work, Amelia. Thank you. So if you ever come to Mackenzie and you come here, this is for Chloe Babcock here, but if you ever come for lunch at Mackenzie, we haven't had to do assigned seating this year, which is a good thing. It means behaviors are appropriate, but it can get a little cutthroat where you want to sit in the cafeteria. And there was one day where Chloe gave up her seat for another student without even hesitating. And for that act of kindness, Chloe, I'd love for you to come on up. All right, sweetie. Thank you. Keep up the great work. So, last but certainly not least, Colton, we let the ladies go first, so come on up, big guy. Yep, come on up, buddy. So again, we have another kindergartner here who recognized that a student didn't have something, and again, it was a snack. And again, thinking of another person, not yourself, you thought of that student, right, who wasn't yourself, and for that act of kindness, you get a free ice cream cone. All right, buddy? And this is all yours.
Carhartt shirt?
And you look sharp. You grab a tie. You can have my job tomorrow, bud. Oh, there's your ice cream cone.
Hey, is that a Carhartt shirt you got on, buddy? There you go, pal.
He is cute.
He is cute. They're all cute.
They are.
Is that all you got, Mr. Carpentier?
Yes, that's all I have present here today.
Okay, so at this time, you're more than welcome to stay, but if you want to be bored and stay, that's fine. If you want to go, you won't hurt our feelings at all.
Everybody tomorrow. Slowly going to sing you too.
At this time, I will call the transportation, Mr. McKenzie. I think you said the name right?
What's that?
For your presentation.
Yeah. Can we hear me? Are we good on the mic? Awesome. We did my name is Chris Wojciechowski. We did a transportation study. We worked with Caleb and the transportation team. Everyone was very cooperative. We're going to talk a little bit at a very high level. And I definitely want this to be as interactive as possible. So if you have questions, feel free to interrupt me, and we can kind of go back and forth and dive into more details where it makes more sense to do so. Just to give a quick overview on TAS, Transportation Advisory Services. We were founded in 1987. We have been around for a while. We are dedicated to student transportation. We don't dabble in selling routing software, maintenance programs, or anything like that. So we're a third-party independent consulting firm, which means any recommendation that we give to you guys, it's because what we have found with our experience is the best for the district. We don't sell any software. We don't sell any other packages or anything like that. So any recommendation we have is what we think is in your best interest. I do have my contact information here. Tracy and Caleb do have a copy of this PowerPoint. I sent it probably while you guys were out getting dinner or something, but if anybody would like a copy or to get in contact with me, that's my information right there. Just to dive in at a high level, some of the observations. working with transportation. The first one I want to put up there is the late bus process is a challenge. And what I want to say about that is I know that the number of students that take your late buses can vary drastically from day to day, and it makes it really hard from an operational standpoint. And since the district is so large and you have to transport so many students to so many potential student houses, you have to allocate a lot of resources, and transportation it could be very problematic at times, because some days there could be one student that takes the late bus all the way up to 25, 30 students. So very unpredictable sometimes. So if there's a little bit more predictability, that could definitely help out, even out some of those processes. The leased vehicles program that you guys are part of, that's an excellent idea for you guys. You're keeping your vehicles very young. You're not having a lot of the breakdowns that we're seeing from districts that have older vehicles in their fleet. And as you unfortunately have to move towards electric vehicles, leasing is definitely going to be one of the best opportunities for the district as that transition kind of comes to fruition. And we can definitely talk about electrification. I'm sure there's a lot of questions surrounding that. The big thing I want to talk about here next is the current facility is leased. Once you start to have to put some electrical infrastructure on the ground when it comes to charging, bringing power from ONR or RG&E, or NYSEG, to the site, you really want to have that facility maybe more secured. So it's something that you might want to look into acquiring some of that land. There is going to be a substantial amount of power required for these chargers, probably equal or a little bit more than the power that's required here at the high school. Is what you'll need at your transportation garage. In the current practice, you do require 1 or 2 trip drivers that are separate from your day-to-day home-to-school drivers. The process is working right now. Transportation is doing a really great job getting all the kids to their activities, getting kids to school, and getting them home. But there is a national bus driver shortage, and it's something that you really want to kind of keep in mind. That process is definitely potential. If you start to lose 1 or 2 drivers, it could be more problematic. We did want to talk about outsourcing. I want to state a couple things here. The contractor costs can be predictable. Usually when you go out to bid or something like that, you understand what your costs are for 5 years, and then renewing at CPI potentially until the contractor wants to renew or the district wants to renew. So it can be more predictable, but that usually comes at a cost. Whenever you talk to a contractor, whenever there's a variable in cost, from a low end to a high end, they're always going to provide you a cost based on the worst case scenario. So the district will probably pay a premium for any potential risk that's associated with that. You may have an improved maintenance program. The maintenance program here is working great, but if you utilize a contractor, they have dozens, if not hundreds of other garages that they do. They have the same processes and procedures. There are very few contractors, especially the ones that could potentially service the district, that have bad maintenance programs. Personnel issues, you wouldn't have to necessarily provide any interaction with drivers necessarily, where you might have like grievances and things like that. The contractor would have to handle, but also you're losing a lot of control when it comes to that. So right now your drivers are great, your maintenance staff is great, transportation is great overall. I don't see a huge issue with transportation right now on any of these levels. Typical bus cost will be about $500 per day. This figure, I'm actually updating. We're getting bids that are coming in now. This is like bid season when districts are getting all their dollar value. That number is probably closer to $680. So it's jumped almost $200 this year from years past. And the next pages, we did kind of factor that in, and we reran some of the numbers that you would have to pay. The availability of contractors in the area is also a challenge. Everybody in here may be thinking about how it's challenging for the district to transition from a gas or diesel vehicles up to electric vehicles. Contractors are having that same problem, and some of the smaller contractors in the area are starting to either go under because they're not willing to make the capital investment, or they're getting bought out by larger larger contractors. What that means is you're seeing less and less competition, and so those rates can go higher and higher. It could reduce some of the headaches transitioning to electric vehicles, but again, you're going to be paying that premium for having the contractor take on some of that burden. And you do lose a lot of the control when it comes to, I like to call it customer service, but your interaction with your parents, the things that you do on a day-to-day basis. You don't necessarily have as much control over hiring practices, on who's on each of the routes. Something you want to really keep in mind if you do go that route. The one thing that is nice is if a contractor did come in here to take over, most, if not all of the current drivers would probably go work for that contractor because they know the area, they love the kids. The pay may be a little bit different, but the benefits would be also a lot different as well. One thing about outsourcing is once you outsource, it's really, really challenging to bring it back in-house ever. So once you go down that road, it would be almost impossible to bring it back in. Imagine having to buy 12 or starting a new lease of 12 or 13 new buses, or having to recruit 12 new drivers. How hard is it to get 1 or 2 drivers every year? So it's not something that you can't outsource, but it's definitely something that needs to be given a lot of thought and consideration. If you do ever want to go down the outsourcing road, you need to start the process of bidding out in like August, September, October, like having the process be done by October for the following school year. So it's a very long process, especially with lead times for equipment. To go over some of the numbers here, the cost is something that you really want to look at. I ran the numbers of the current vehicles that you have based on the pricing sheets that I got from some contractors in a district that's within 2 hours of here. 16 buses, apologies, so slightly larger, but not significantly. I utilize those numbers and utilize your current buses. I would estimate between $1.5 and $1.75 million just to get your kids from home to school. Your athletic runs would be about $250,000, and your summer school transportation, $150,000 to $200,000. That's getting you up probably over $2 million, where your current cost is $1.5 million based on the most recent data. So paying an extra $400,000, $500,000 doesn't seem the best financial decision, especially since the operational efficiency of transportation is very good. Obviously, there are some improvements that can be made. And I do want to point out that some costs would not go to the contractor, so you would still need someone to help you with transportation and bringing routes, and that cost would be around $150,000 a year. So are you willing to pay a $500,000 premium to outsource? I think all the signs point towards no, but that's definitely something to think about and consider. Moving over to routing, a couple things we did. We did a ridership audit where each of the bus drivers counted each of the students that rode the bus for 1 full week. This helps us to understand where there's some room on each of the buses, and it's real data. It's not, I drove past bus 109 and there was only 2 kids on it. Well, yeah, maybe there was only 2 kids on it because it's the last 2 kids that are getting off. So we actually wanted real data, and we'll show that on the next page. So we have the 6 in-district routes. I want to point this out. Potentially can consolidate to 5 runs. This does come at with some trade-offs. Your kids will either spend more time on the bus, and to make it work, they'll have to walk longer distances to a bus stop. I'm sure that there will be an increasing number of parental complaints, and that allows you a lot less flexibility. Anything that could go wrong would throw a lot of this off and make these issues that I listed above a lot worse. The district right now is kind of separate into 3 buses go in one direction and 3 buses go in the other direction. We'll see that on one of the next slides here. It would make it so you have 2 buses going one way, 3 buses going the other way. It's possible, but is it worth it with some of the trade-offs that you have here? We did want to point out the high school ridership and the elementary school ridership. What we did is for each of the buses in the morning and the afternoon, we counted the number of students. We had the minimum students, the maximum students. We took the average versus the usable, the capacity of the bus. All of these buses were 66 passenger buses. If anyone can fit 66 high schoolers on a 66 passenger bus, you're crazy. So the number we actually used was 44, which is 2 high school students per seat. We believe that's plenty. I rode a bus with another adult to Bill's training camp for 30 minutes. It's doable. And then we take a look at the percent versus plan and the percent versus usable capacity. You're looking at anywhere between 15% and 73%, and that number varies from the morning to the afternoon. The district is doing better than industry standards. Usually when we go in somewhere, most of the numbers are in the teens and 20s. Most of your numbers are high 20s, even into the 50s and up into the 70s at sometimes. So there is room for improvement on some of these runs, but it's not necessarily a glaring red flag. I like to utilize this as a tool just because bus 125 has a 15% ridership audit or ridership in the afternoon. As you can kind of see in the morning, it has 23, so there are some more students that ride there. That is one of the longer runs too. So balancing different things, time on the bus and things like that are important. I do want to go over to the Mackenzie students. Fairly similar numbers. These are utilizing 66 kids on the bus as a capacity. We tell districts to aim for 85%. Now I understand these numbers are not near 85%. Nowhere in the state is near 85%. It's a target, and when you fall short, if you can be in that 50-60% range, you are in the top 5% of schools in the state. And obviously, being a more rural district, your numbers are going to be lower because you don't want your kids on the bus for 2-3 hours. Going down to 3 buses is not really feasible. So the ridership is actually in better shape than I think we anticipated at the beginning of the study, especially with the amount of time that kids need to spend on the bus. What we like to do is we like to map a geographic area, and this is the geographic area where students get picked up. It's not the route that the bus takes, it's a general area where students get picked up. A lot of times routing gets thought of as more linear. Here's the path that we have to follow. What we found is if you can shift that mindset a little bit to, all right, bus 100 is going to cover this geographic area, and let's minimize the amount of overlap if possible. That tends to help reduce the time on the bus and also helps you to maybe consolidate a run. Now, that still comes with a lot of the trade-offs that you're currently having. There is some overlapping territory. Most of this is to try to prevent turnarounds, which is a good thing. And again, bus routes are typically thought as linearly. So this is kind of a different process that we wanted to present new information to the district. There are some challenges with the distances that the the buses are having to take, especially a bus that has to go to Mackenzie versus a bus that comes to the high school to here. That route is going to vary slightly, and the time spent on the bus is going to vary as well. There's a decent amount of time between the schools. And there, again, the inconsistency with the late buses and ridership from here, a little bit more transparency with transportation, I think, would help with planning, help with making sure that bus drivers are available when needed. If the district was looking to kind of move towards 5 routes, this is how you could potentially do it, having students laid out in this geographic area. One of the other things you could do is you could take the same kind of concept and still keep 6 buses and maybe reduce the amount of time that students spend on the bus. If you can reduce the amount of time students spend on the bus by an average of like 10 minutes, that would be fantastic. I'm not sure how achievable that would be, but if you follow this kind of process, we have seen a lot of success. It is kind of a new kind of thought process and concept, and when put in place, it does see a lot of positive results. So this is our last slide here, talking about electrification. I kept it very simple because I want to open it up for questions and keep it on this slide, and we can talk about any of these bullet points here. So timeline, one of the worst things that you can do when you're trying to start the electrification process is buy a bus. Buying a bus should be step like 150. You have started taking the first few steps with understanding what are some of the rules. Caleb's done a good job at understanding different processes and procedures that need to be put in place, finding mentors around the state that can really guide the journey. And once you kind of start getting into it and having some significant studies, having some architecture looked at, making some capital investment projects or decisions, then you can start walking down the road of infrastructure and talking to Orange and Rockland or NYSEG on where the power needs to go and what stages they need to be put into place. One of the operational decisions that need to be made is, what is your transition plan going to look like? Not only for electric vehicles, but what is it going to look like for your diesel vehicles? You're going to need probably some diesel vehicles that last you until 2035. With a leasing structure, will a leasing structure work for you guys? That's something you'll have to explore, maybe extending that contract farther out than you currently have it, just so that you can kind of retain some of those vehicles.
Do you know, off the top of your head, the 2027 for no new diesel, that I'm assuming is no new purchase orders? So what we did with this set, I put my purchase order in August. I didn't receive the buses until next September. So if in, say, 2026, I put in a purchase order for diesel buses, they're fine even if they don't get delivered until after July 27? Because they won't be built by then.
So I want to say yes with a caveat. New York State likes to change their mind, and they have not written anything down. As of right now, anything that has a purchase order before the deadline is still allowable. There may be, if there is any guidance that moves forward in the next couple of years, I'll reach out to Caleb and people in all the districts that I've worked with to inform them of that fact. But yeah, that is a possibility. There is also a 2-year potential extension. If you are showing an effort to move towards electrification, they are going to push that 27 deadline back to 29. This is something that has come out somewhat recently, but there needs to be kind of significant effort moving toward that to receive that extension.
Can I interrupt you for 1 minute?
Yeah,
Can we
please.
hold your thoughts? Mr. Carpentier, you want to do your AOK awards? So you're probably like,
I
do we really have
apologize.
to sit through this? I mean, if you want to, that's fine.
All right, so we had another student show up for an AOK award. If I could have Landon Hunt come on up here, please. Yep, no problem, Ms. Lombardi. Yeah. So Landon has been a big help in his 4th grade class, both in his homeroom class and the other class where he receives his ELA and writing instruction. He helps clean up every single day. If that takes up sweeping up stuff off the floor, anything that papers that are on the desk organized. And so Mrs. Burrows Woods wanted to make sure that you were recognized for your act of kindness for what you do for your classroom and all your students there, all right? So for that, free ice cream cone at the corner, all right, my man? All right. This is all yours, better, right?
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Landon.
That's Rebecca's feather over there. Is that all you got?
That's it.
That's it. If you people would like to stay, that's fine. If you want to go, you won't hurt our feelings. It's up to you. We'll leave it to you. Okay, that's fine.
Thank you.
Yep, I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. I didn't know what they wanted to do.
No, I appreciate that. So we talked about the operational decisions. One of the other things you'll have to figure out is how do your buses kind of operate. Right now, if a bus picks up students in the morning, it does the same route kind of in the afternoon with very minor tweaks. Buses that have longer runs, you may need to switch them with some shorter runs and flip buses so you keep the overall mileage lower.
I can't believe I didn't look at this part of the report because I read the report, but what are the longest mileages of our runs? Do you know about?
I don't know off the top of my head, I apologize.
Gotta be 30 some miles.
Melissa, do you know?
The high school Mackenzie ones average, I think, roughly around round trip every day, around 60 miles a day. Obviously, we have OU BOCES, SC BOCES.
Yeah, no, I
know.
But I believe it's around 60.
That's
those ones will probably get an electric band to do, and they have much longer range.
Is that morning and night you're talking about, Missy? 60? Yeah, I figured 30 a run.
Yeah.
Somewhere around there.
So what you'll see a lot of times is when you start to get sales pitches from bus companies, they'll say this bus can go 120 miles. We've done some case studies and we've looked at actual data from, there's some buses up in Canada that are operating. We're using a lot of those data because you need to get your kids to school on the worst day, and that's what you need to plan for. Taking 40% off of that 120 mile figure seems to be a fairly safe estimate. You may need to close if you lose power overnight, and there's not really anything you can really do to avoid some of that. But if you basically cut the mileage in half, can you operate with that? Most of your runs, it would be probably kind of tight, so you would have to do some charging in the middle of the day. So then when we get to some charging needs, do you need your slow level chargers or your fast chargers? The differences are this level 2 chargers is 19 kilowatts per hour charge, and that would take anywhere between 8 and 14 hours depending on if you're charging it from 0% all the way to 100. Now, almost all the time your buses would never get to 0% battery. Excuse me. But at the same time, that's quite a significant time. What we would recommend typically in the district is you would want to have a split amount of chargers. Half probably fast chargers that you can charge some of your buses in the middle of the day, and then half of the level 2 chargers that would help your buses get through the night and charge back up for the next day as well.
So your percentages of people that ride the bus, what would you think about combining Mackenzie and Eldred and doing one trip in the morning and one trip at night?
There is some advantages to that.
We just have to split the start times in the school.
Yeah, so you'd probably have at least about a 15-minute delay in the start times. One of the downsides would be the number of hours that your bus drivers receive. With it being really challenging to get bus drivers, cutting hours.
Well, we'd have to work on that. I mean, I understand
sure.
what they're getting paid now, and we know what we're doing, but the cost savings on the other end would probably make up if we kept the bus drivers where they were happy to stay here.
Yeah, for sure.
My problem with the territory that we live in is making the kids walk further. We don't have sidewalks and streetlights. We had a kid walking a mile to his house in the dark with no shoulder, no nothing. And it's dark up here at 4:30, 20 to 5. You get on a late bus, and now you're walking in the dark a mile, and he could, 12, 13, 14, whatever.
That's why it's really important. I think I failed to emphasize this before, the communication for those late buses. If we have who is riding those buses, transportation may be able to provide a better level of service than if it's like, hey, anyone in the high school is eligible for transportation. We don't necessarily know who's riding. If there's only 1 or 2 kids, we can kind of fly by the seat of our pants. But if we have 10, 15 kids, if we know exactly where, who those students are and where they're going, that transparency would help. So, but that's a good point there.
So my other thing that not me, we're looking at doing, I had paid a visit to Missy over at the bus garage. I'm not an engineer, but I think we can do something at the top of the hill up there. I am dead set against putting millions of dollars into a 100-year-old building infrastructure that we don't own. That's not where
For sure.
I want to go. I don't know what the board wants to do, but you're talking, I'm just going to throw numbers out there, $2-3 million to get set up for these electric buses with all these charges, probably more. And I'm not willing to put that kind of money in a 100-year-old building that's over there.
Yep.
And that we don't own.
Yeah.
So
I've been charging, and the infrastructure for the charging I would highly recommend be outside.
Right.
With the understanding that, like, there's cold temperatures, even with that consideration in place, most of your infrastructure upgrades will be outside of the building. But definitely looking
Yeah, but we
into
don't own the
like,
property either.
No, we don't own the property. I don't know if we have enough property over there to do it.
Is there any land that we could purchase relatively cheap
There?
nearby? No, and just in Highland proper.
Well, there is. There's a couple
It doesn't have
spots.
to be attached to our building, just close enough.
Well, no, there is. There's definitely property out 55 for sale. I mean, and I don't know if it's for sale, but we could definitely talk to him. I know who owns most of it.
Because if you're gonna build a $3 million garage, what's 50 grand for the land? It's gonna be much more,
But that's,
it's gonna be easier to work with.
that's what I'm saying about, you drive past that upper parking lot during the day, it's a third of the way full.
Yeah.
So you can park your buses, and my only concern is, when we have an event at the top field, that's our parking for the top field.
Well, that's what I mean.
But I think, if anybody looked on a camera or whatever, they probably see me sitting up there staring out the windshield, because I've stopped there 4 or 5 times and looked at it and, was thinking about it. And I brought Missy up to board, and I stopped over to see her, because I wanted to see what the square footage of our building over there and what's going to fulfill the needs. I don't think the building right here at the top of the hill that we had at one point that we rented is big enough. But I think a 100 by 100 building, because what did we say it was, Missy? 68 by, I got your email, I asked you that, I know. And I don't mean to put you on the spot.
I probably got it in email.
But, no, I definitely got it. It was 68 by 40 or something like that for those 3 bays. But we need an office for you, a bathroom or so, a shape-up room. So I figured 100 by 100 is what I was thinking for a building. And I was thinking that if we hogged some of that bank out up there, and we could build, and I know we'd like to do a drive-through, because that's a safer aspect. Drive-through. Most of your firehouses are going that way, most of your town shops are going that way. I don't know if we could do that, but I think an engineer could figure that out. But I would definitely like to look at that first up there, if the board's in agreeance, before we go out and spend $200,000 on property. I don't know if we come up with 50 grand, but we better get ready. By taxes, we're laying rich here, people are getting top
That's why I
dollar.
asked you, I said, I don't know what.
So,
land. I looked at the land in Highland right now.
And to piggyback on Mr. Halleck's, my question is, and you may not have this answer, but I'm thinking also if, for safety concerns, if we've got kind of a mixture of diesel vehicles and then electric vehicles, do we have to have separate bays? Do we have to have, because again, if we're talking about fire and we're talking about, do we know of any regulations coming down from the state that says, okay, you have to have this space is just for EV buses and this space has to be guaranteed just for diesel, just for the fire issue?
this question came up a couple weeks ago, and I talked to SCD about it. Right now, there is no requirement to separate them. The big thing, so I'm a big data guy, data-driven. Electric bus fires happen, this is going to sound weird, at the same rate as diesel buses happen. Not to say that an electrical fire is anything like a diesel a fire, but it is a consideration to kind of think about, and definitely training appropriate staff on. But right now, there's not a requirement to separate an electric vehicle versus a diesel vehicle.
Okay.
I definitely think 3 bays would be more than enough, especially the maintenance that's required with lease, if you're going to continue leasing your vehicle. I mean, I'm not the one that works here, but 3 bays would probably be more than what I would recommend. 2 bays would seem probably fairly sufficient for the vehicles that you have. If you had 12, 14-year-old vehicles, I'd probably say you need more bays.
It's going to be broke down in there most of the time.
Yeah,
Waiting for parts.
for sure. So that's definitely, if you are looking at land, the big thing to do is check out the utility and if they can get the power there. That's
So,
almost a bigger requirement.
How does that
than-
fall on us? How are we
Yeah.
supposed to go to power company and say, you're going to do this? That's got to come out of Albany.
So if you ever talk to anyone at O&R or
I
NYSEG,
worked for ONR for 35 years, so.
so if you talk to anyone that says, we can't do this, you're talking to the wrong person. They can do it. They may not be able to do it with what's currently available at that transformer or whatever.
Well, so that 100-year-old building over there, the power comes up out of Port Jervis. They upgraded the lines a few years ago, but we're still, I don't think the infrastructure for the power is going to be able to do that over there. I honestly don't think it's going to happen. And I don't know if NYSEG can honestly do it here without boosting the lines. And who's going to pay for that cost?
So there are a significant amount of grants, and anything before the meter, the utilities are taking the brunt of that. If you're talking to anyone at NYSEG or Jen Rockland that are saying it's fully funded by the district, reach out to me and I will point you to the appropriate people that can help you with. They're not going to, usually they'll cover about 90% of the upgrades that are needed. But yeah, I mean,
So we were in Buffalo this year at the convention, and I know I'm repeating myself here, but not to you.
yeah.
And I made it my business to go sit in seminars about these electric buses.
Yep.
And I got to be honest with you. The gentleman standing at the head of the table trying to answer the questions, he should have been in a dance competition because he danced around every one of them. He did not have answers for most of them. I mean, it was
Does not surprise me.
it was crazy. You know, I mean, it was just, you know, and we just had a meeting here a few weeks ago with the legislator and the assembly person, and they told us outright, do not be the first ones to try to do this.
Yeah, do not. Yeah.
Do not, because this is going to be a mess.
I said that from the start.
This is going to be a mess.
People and see where they fall.
I mean, you know, we've done very well here by not burdening our taxpayers too much, and that's the way we want to keep it.
For sure.
But if you're telling me I got to build a building and do an infrastructure of $3 million, you're talking $4 or $5 million. Somebody's got to eat that.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, well, there is no building grant money, right? There's no grant money for building.
You don't get aid.
You don't get aid.
No, we get aid, there's not much grant money.
Grant money, that's what I'm getting
We're
at.
considered wealthy, so we fall out of the parameters imposed with the grant money.
Which-
they're given.
right.
But we will get 31% aid, and then they'll give us a little bit of grant money on the difference between the cost of a diesel and an electric bus. We can also talk to NYSERDA. There is some money.
So let me ask you a question, Caleb, while we're talking about this. In our budget, can we put a building fund in there? And you know, because I know we can have 4% over our budget.
Capital
but-
Reserve Fund, yeah.
I mean, that might be something we want to think about.
That's got to get approved by the voters, so that's got to go
That's
to
fine.
referendum. We could,
Listen, that's easy. So we're doing this because we don't want to burden the taxpayers. So we want to start trying to put a fund aside to help at least a little bit.
so they got two different kinds of funds.
Because we're going to have to bond it eventually.
Yes, we are.
You know, a piece
The
of
one I
it.
think you'd be looking at is there's a capital reserve. They have something called, the state breaks into two types. One is a type reserve and one is like a higher level reserve. The type reserve is the higher level, sorry, than a specific reserve. What you're talking about is a specific one. So you would put it out to the voters. There'd be a separate proposition. You say, I want to create a capital reserve for the purpose of building a new transportation.
But could you make it even general, saying, we want to set aside a capital reserve fund for the EV buses?
Is everybody on the same page?
So if
with
you
what we're
want to go
talking about,
super
right?
general,
Amador,
you don't
good?
need to get voter approval. You get voter approval when you spend it. So
Okay.
basically, you have two choices. You can get the voter approval up front, Then when you go to spend it, you don't need to get the voter approval again.
But to get the voter approval at the very beginning, that's when you are specific.
That's when you're specific, right.
Okay.
Then that way, when you go to spend it, you don't have to ask for it, you already got the permission. As long as you spend it on what you said you were spending on.
So-
So those are your two options, they're both fine. You could make one and say, hey, look, we're gonna do one capital reserve just for transportation, that's very vague. Then when you go to spend the money out of it, that's when you do the referendum.
Well, I would rather do that because what if,
Makes sense.
you know, something changed, it's New York State, it's gonna change.
Right.
You know,
Already has
down the
a little
road.
bit.
So those
No,
are,
it-
yeah.
It already has. So my thing that I was been thinking about, believe me, I've been thinking about it a lot. I think our first two steps would be to see if we can do it up there. Because that's going to save us a lot of money to be able to do it up there. And the second thing would be to do is to find out if we could combine the runs. Have two different start times. And I get, you're going to hear from parents, I don't want my little kid. I rode with it, go ahead, I'm sorry, Miss.
So let me just ask Ksenia, she's been on our buses for many, many years. I personally don't think if you're going with 6 runs, and I love the idea, don't get me wrong, of starting here and dropping off and then 15 minutes later going. So you have pre-K through 12 all on one bus. I think you can manage that as far as grades, yes, I do. I don't think keeping 6 buses, you can fit all of those grades together. You're talking 44, we have room for 44 seats, 44 students. Ksenia, on the bus that you ride, are you gonna be able to fit all the elementary and all the high school kids on there?
How many kids are on your bus roughly now? Is it full?
Yeah, it's full. There's like a
Yeah, I
lot
was
of
gonna say,
people
you
all
can
the
go back to
time.
What's that?
drivers.
There's a lot of kids on the bus. It's hard to even just find a seat even, especially when
The
like,
problem, and our principals can attest, I mean, Mike, you see how many kids get off in the morning. Now, the afternoon at the high school is a completely different situation. You can go out there in the afternoon, I've driven a bus, there might be 5 to 10 kids on the bus, but in the morning, there's quite a few at the high school level. When you go on a bus at Mackenzie, those buses for the most part are pretty full.
Yeah, like
So the
one.
problem that we have is on the Glen Space side, we have heavy ridership. So those buses are routing 50-some students, they may average like 40-some on there a day, where on the Ewell-Maryville side, we may have buses that only have 20-some students, but it's the length of time to get them that's the issue. So it's two different issues on each side of town. So if we try to combine all those using 6 buses at the same time, you're not gonna have enough for them. Try one of your Mackenzie buses and think about, okay, now we gotta add all the, for that same area and all these families, the high school students on those buses as well, with instruments and book
Yeah.
bags and.
Because
Just to point,
It's a great idea, but
Well-
in reality, it's not gonna, they're not gonna fit.
Okay, but when I went to school, there was about the same amount of kids in this school right now. That's how we did it. We were in this building, and we all rode the same bus.
there's more buses, probably.
Yeah, what if we combine the runs, but add a couple, or combine the high school and elementary and add a couple more runs?
Well, you can add the buses, but who going to get the drivers?
Yeah, one of our.
You're going to get the drivers, and you're going to have the expense of a $300,000, $400,000 bus, so are we saving money? That's what we have to look at.
Yeah.
By buying 2 more buses, you have a hard enough time getting bus drivers now, and do we want to spend another $600,000? Are we honestly saving that?
You have to consider if there's an emergency dismissal, we have to put every single kid on a bus.
Exactly.
So you have to consider that and weigh that, and it doesn't happen very often.
It doesn't, but, so, here's what you would do away with also, is this school getting let out before the snow starts, and you getting let out while the snow's going.
Yeah.
Everybody would get out within 15 minutes. That's the stuff I'm looking at, because I know the enrollment isn't much more than when I went to school here. It's just 2 different buildings.
And as much as it may not be for next year or the year after, if you look what the current enrollment is moving toward, based on, what pre-K is coming in
Yep.
and each year to year, it may be 5 or 6 years away, but that may be when you would be able to do it. But it does go to the riders, and it's really difficult. The Mackenzie buses are full, the little ones. Again, if you just go to the 66-person bus for the high schoolers, is that
That's
what
right. This is the
what you do?
elementary.
This is the elementary.
So just one of the things I wanted to point out, bus 119, when you take a look at the max, you have 38 on this and 27 on the other. That's 65 students.
You're not gonna get.
You're not fitting 3 across for all grade levels. I would say that your max there would be 55, where you can split the bus. Like your elementary would be 3 per seat, high school and middle school would be 2 per seat. So There, and do, unless there's significant
After
changes.
First grade, you cannot fit for you a seat,
It's hard with the book bags.
right?
Yeah,
Until you just pay.
it's challenging, for sure, but that's why we take a look at the usable capacity and have it capped and things like that.
Anybody have any other questions?
Now, let me say one more thing. You can change the size of your buses. Okay, so when I worked at Delaware Valley, completely different setup than here. We actually had 88 passenger flatnose buses. So we would take from Delaware Valley High School, we would load up 88 kids, and that bus would go to Wild Acres, and believe it or not, drop off one stop, 88 kids at the same time. The reason we don't currently have those size buses here is because they cannot fit in the garage that we currently have.
See, this is why we needed her here.
Something to think about.
Seriously, well, we're gonna be, if we're gonna,
You may, and I don't know, haven't seen with the electric buses, what's coming down the road for sizes, but you have to be able to have the bus inside the garage to inspect it for
Right,
DOT. 66 passengers is the biggest bus, like we literally have a plug. When you shut the door, that's it.
So
Going forward, you could think about that and say, hey, we might want to get bigger buses, 72s or 88s or,
Now, that's the
flatbed
type-
bus.
the flat nose bus, that's the type Bs?
it's cab over.
Type D.
I'm sorry?
D.
Type D buses? Okay.
Yeah, and the flat nose buses, you are going to pay a premium for those as well.
Right.
You're probably looking at like $40,000 more for those buses. For the 72 buses, passenger buses I could see working here, the 88 passenger buses with your hills,
Well, turn around too, some of the spots are,
turnaround, yeah,
some of the spots,
Bear in mind, those buses were used to go from point A to point B and just drop off one group of students.
Yeah.
It wasn't.
Stop.
Our average bus runs right now, like just for an elementary run, are probably 20 stops.
right.
Okay, same thing for like high school. And there may be in between, something that is 66, between 66 and 88. Just bear in mind, with an 88 passenger, while that all sounds great, we could put more students on there. And actually, at Delaware Valley, we used to roster them more and hope that people were going to be absent. Okay, but bear in mind, you still have one bus driver with their eyes this way, and you have 88 elementary children behind you. So that's a task. All right, so if you were to do something like that, I'm thinking you would definitely need to have bus monitoring.
88 buses, turning them around up here some places is gonna be tough. That's number one.
It is an option if you want to go with a bigger bus, and I'm just saying this is the size of the buses that we have, because that's what fits in our garage.
Yeah,
On the
that's what fits in our garage now. And that's why it's good to talk about this because,
Garage,
right, that's what I'm getting at.
make those bays long.
Because right now, we can't even put a lift in that garage over there because we don't have the space around it according to DOT, correct? So that's the other thing we're looking at. With it, I'd like to lean towards a new building because we can't even put a lift in that one because it's not big enough.
Yeah.
I mean, and we're gonna spend all this money, we definitely need to broaden our horizons, I think.
We need our own.
Yeah, I agree. If that's the route we're gonna go. Obviously, the gentleman's saying contracting it out is not a great thing to do. And I know, once you get rid of something, it's hard to get it back. It's almost impossible, so.
I'll give Caleb,
Drivers would be the hardest part there.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't find two.
Well, it's just
12.
coming up with all the money to, I mean, if we decided to do that and then we're all electric, now we got a building, all the electric, buy the buses, you're talking a big expense, so.
I'll give Caleb some information. There's a district called Indian River. It's up near Fort Drum, but they put their a new bus garage in. Obviously, it's a much bigger district than you guys, but they built their bus garage correctly. So they may have some pointers on where to start, things to do, things not to do. We've seen some districts make some really bad goof ups where they built a brand new garage, and they have the same problem that you have
Yeah,
right
well, that's
now.
not gonna happen here.
So
Not under our
but
watch.
I'll send you some contact information for Indian River. It's at least a good bouncing off point to.
So I think our first start should be that, in the weather gets nice, get an engineer company to come in here and take a look up there and see if it's something, but let's come up with the size of the garage we want. Missy's gotta be a big part of this.
Yep.
And, let's start there. Let's start and see what we want. You can go to Pioneer Building, you get these pole barn buildings, all insulated, good, It's a metal building. It's still no different than what we had, it just wasn't big enough. But you get these metal buildings that are, I was in a building today that was the size of a warehouse down in Montgomery, and it's a pole barn. It's a pole building, well insulated. So, you know what I'm talking about, Misty, with the metal buildings. So I think that should be our first step to see if we can do it here, but let's find out what size building we want. I don't care about the cost right now. We just need to know what size, how many buses we need to park, and then we should give that to an engineer company in the spring and let them look at everything up there and see if it's feasible. Because if it's not, then we got to go find a piece of property.
Now, if we're building new, do you want space for a structure that they can park under? We don't have one right now, they just park out in the elements.
Does any bus garage have any structures to park under?
Like a lean-to, no?
Most people don't.
But we definitely have to have a spot for our snow removal.
That's a potential possibility. There's been some good test cases where you build kind of like a structure based, and you utilize some solar and have a battery backup storage, and that helps offset some of the electrical charges. I understand it's New York, winters, not a lot of sun. It's something to look into, and then you don't have the problems of removing snow off the buses in the morning.
But we have a $20,000 to $30,000.
Yeah, that's true, yeah.
We just drive over and it just takes the snow right off.
For sure, yeah, but if you're moving, are you going to move that piece of equipment?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So
We own
there you
that.
go.
That's the only thing we own over there.
That's portable, huh?
Yeah.
There we
That's the only
go.
thing we own over there.
Yeah.
It's coming with us.
And the bus is definitely coming with us. Even if we sell it, it's coming with us.
Okay, just wanted to point that out.
Yeah. Something I was going to say. In that, Caleb, when we're talking about this, need to figure out, size up a generator for it.
Okay.
A regular generator that, what am I trying to think of, like a Generac, where it
Standby.
automatically switches over. Standby generator, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Put that right, that'll be part of the whole ordeal. Because if everything's going to be electric, you're going to have a generator, yeah. If we're allowed to have propane to back it up. New York State says we can't.
I don't know if there's
Diesel.
going to be a generator that could actually do the energy that those buses are.
Yeah, there is. It probably the size of one of Lumberland, because they could do the whole town
Oh, yeah,
when they bought
absolutely.
that.
No, you're right. If you did one like that.
Well, that's what I'm saying. You have to
you're saying
size it
that
up.
takes about the same draw as the high school. So
here.
we did talk about doing, so you think, what, 400 grand probably for the generator?
Yeah.
Because that's what we got quoted for the one that would
Yeah, it's,
turn the power on for the whole high school if
Right.
it went off. And
Right.
saying it's about the same draw.
I mean, I think if we're going to do it, we
it
should
right.
think about that, because everything's going to be electric. So, might just,
one of the things to look out for too is you'll see people coming in and selling back to the grid, things like that.
solar.
Well, no, selling back to the grid using the bus battery. I would caution you on that, because a lot of the warranties that come with these vehicles are miles, years, and can't think of the word. The amount of power that gets utilized.
Wattage? The watts?
Yeah, but it goes either way. Whether you're utilizing it or selling back, you're kind of destroying your warranty if you do have one at that point. So, and these buses, the warranties are typically about 8 years. But if you're selling back, you're gonna probably use that up by 4.
Tom, it was talked about when I was on the town board down there, putting solar panels on the town barn and running power down to the school and down to the town. Something you might want to look at. I don't know if the structure of the roof is sound for that, but I know it was one of the things I was looking at, and I actually met with Bob DeFore. That's when it was back then. That's what we were talking about doing, and we were going to include the school in that. I know you can't do the whole school, but if you could, whatever we could get from it. I don't know if it's something that,
Well, we could investigate.
yeah, it's just food for thought.
A few years back, probably about 5 years ago, we're entertaining putting in a solar farm on Smithfield Road. Nice act, knocked us down.
Yeah.
They wouldn't go for it.
Well, I don't know how they can knock you down. I'd have to look into that.
It was competition, it was a big deal.
As I got to tell you, Orange County's full of them. Full of them. All over the place. The Randall Airport coming off of 84 when you go between the two exits in Middletown. That whole field down through there's solar panels. You go down County Route 1 down through the Black Dirt and everything, them old farmers are selling all their land, it's all solar panels.
The problem here, Scott, is the transmission
Right.
That was the problem. And the cost of to change those lines was through the roof.
And that's but that's exactly what I'm talking about now, when you have to ante up the power to get down to us to charge your buses. Can the lines handle it? I don't know. I don't know. That's where you're gonna have to start too, as a power company. I don't think that's our job, but if it is, it is. You know, Albany's putting mandates on this stuff, and they're not even, you know, talking to anybody to say, hey, you know, can we even do this? Go ahead, Missy, sorry.
I would also suggest too, since Monticello recently did their own bus garage not all that long ago, I would think it would be helpful that we went and took a tour of their facility. I'm sure they could tell us some things that they did right, some things that they didn't do right. I would think that would be great for us to maybe set up at some point and go take a look.
Run it past Ms. Ferreira, and I'll get my wife's car, and we'll
run over there.
run over there.
Because I know they've run into some problems because they,
Yes, I have heard they have definitely had some problems, some things that they didn't plan on. And this was, you know, not including all this electrical stuff. This was just regular maintenance things,
Right.
fixing buses and whatever.
Right.
but I know they're having to redo some of their conduit because the lines they ran underneath the building is
Isn't
not
heavy
large
enough.
enough,
It's
or not heavy enough.
Yeah. All right, I think we beat that horse. I think we got a plan to start, right? Everybody agree with that, right? We got a plan that we can start with? You have any other?
Get a better idea of the money that's available for this then now?
Yes.
And
Caleb and I will work on that.
let's keep in touch. Let's not let this die. Let's keep in touch with Missy.
Yep.
Come up with a building size. Figure out engineering. You know, these guys are doing this bond up here. They might be able to come down and take a look at that area, fellas.
Well,
I've used them to do a couple things with that.
He could do it. Well, you do stuff like that, right? Yes, we do. So you could take a look. So someday you and I should meet up there, and whoever else wants to be a part of it.
Yeah, we should
and
get some free
look
labor.
at that. All right. Are we all done with Mr. McKinney? McKinney or McKenzie?
Wojciechowski.
Say it totally wrong.
I
Totally off.
butchered that back. We're done with him.
Not even close.
Ooh, wow. All right, so we're good?
Yeah, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you for everything. All right, sorry about that. People, we normally don't run this long, but I knew there was a lot to talk about this year. This is a very, very high priority on our plate for this stuff because it's going to cost the district a lot of money. So, and that's, I'm all about taxpayers, so we're trying to do the best we can. At this time, Superintendent's report, Ms. Ferreira.
Okay, so what we have in front of the board, I do have a draft of the 24-25 academic calendar that we can look at and discuss also again in exec as well. I do have on there the new holiday, that is the Lunar New Year, that is January 29th. We have looked at scheduling 7 snow days. November 1st is a countywide conference day. We have historically given that because it's the day after Halloween, especially for our elementary teachers. They like that day because Halloween is sometimes rough. But it is a countywide conference day, so that is also included. And it still gives us 188 staff days, 183 student days. We have 5 conference days, including parent-teacher conference, which is an additional day. So that gives us 189 days. With 7 snow days, that's 182. We would have the start of the school year on the September 3rd with 2 conference days at the beginning on August 28th and August 29th. So that is a proposed draft for that. Capital bond project, just to update you on that, this Tuesday we were supposed to have our pre-bid walkthrough. With the weather, we actually had that postponed, so that is going to be January 16th, Tuesday. We're going to try it again. And we're going to start here at the high school, check out the fields, and then in the walkthrough at McKenzie. We do know that workplace violence prevention regulation went into effect in January. It is part of the Department of Labor, and forever school districts had been excluded. Well, as of January, they added in school districts. So we have until May 3rd to have a policy statement, which we have a policy reading on this agenda. I have a meeting with all the union heads because they have to be a part of it. We also have to come up with a risk evaluation. I've reached out to the state state asking for an audit regarding our risk evaluation and our prevention program. So that will be in place by May 3rd. It will need to be an addendum to our district-wide safety plan, and then in July and August, when we adopt our district-wide safety plan, it will be now embedded in that plan. So that will cover the Department of Labor. I also put on there about a little bit about with what Chris was saying with the electrification of buses. You know, we do need to look at our timeline, which we've talked about. You know, the fact about leasing buses, we need to order them around 25, 26 so they get in here, because it does take a year, but that will extend our leasing. You know, looking at our initial layout of the building, our funding, which we'll talk about with setting up reserve fund. Now, again, they say we have to contact the utility provider to say, can you give us the power? Everything I've read is that power companies are supposed to do it for us. Now that might be where they'll first say no, and then we have to continue asking. Everybody's gonna have to ask their utility, you know, provider. You know, we did talk about the categories that will have to be assessed. And on a good note, we're gonna have a spring play, and it'll be Annie Jr. They just had auditions this past Saturday, even, you know, the weather held out. So that's on March 22nd and 23rd. So that is grades 3 through 12. Cassini, are you part of that?
I like that response.
No. So I am excited about that. So that concludes my report.
Very good. Any questions from the board for Mrs. Fiera? All good? Moving on. Mr. Conklin.
All right, thank you very much. So my report, short and sweet, MTSS at the junior senior high school is moving along nicely. I'm sure Mr. Carpentieri and Mr. Krebs will talk about that as well. But we established a building-based team, and we're meeting on a regular basis to discuss students. We're putting in interventions in the classroom to help those kids, and, you know, suggesting to teachers that, you know, every kid should learn and have a welcoming, engaging learning environment. So it's moving along nicely. Progress reports were published on Friday, December 22nd. We're continuing to focus on attendance and academics on a daily basis. We had a senior financial aid night that was scheduled this week. I believe it was last night. That's been rescheduled due to the weather for Wednesday, or actually it was Tuesday then, Wednesday, January 17th, beginning at 6 o'clock p.m. We'll have somebody from SUNY Sullivan here to talk about FAFSA and the financial aid process. So we'll hope some people attend that night. It was a great holiday season at the junior senior high school. The seniors did their annual tree decorating, and all the students had the opportunity to participate in a theme week of holiday fun right before break. We had our winter concert, which was well attended, on Tuesday, December 12th. All the students did a wonderful job. Athletics is well into the winter season, and all teams are working hard as they head towards the end of the season and hopefully the postseason. So looking forward to that. And then lastly, January Regents is going to take place from Tuesday, January 23rd to Friday, January 26th. We're offering all Regents exams, although we might not administer all of them because we don't have students taking all of them, but we do have, you know, the basics, and school will be in session on those days. So, and that concludes my report.
Any questions for Mr. Conklin? Thank you, Mr. Conklin. Ksenia. Did I say that right?
Yeah. That was
Outstanding.
As Mr. Conklin had mentioned, sports are doing well in the winter. A lot of the student body like going to the sports and supporting the school. A little shout out to the varsity girls. They won their first part of their section game last week. And they have another one, I think, next week, maybe?
February.
And if they win that, they will. Section champs, so that'll be good.
Section and division, yes.
Track's going along well. We have a West Point meet on Saturday that will help provide scores for our next section meet. And then wrestling, a small team, but they're doing good as well. And then for the clubs, the art club has done a lot of decorating around the school with their posters and banners. And Honor Society also, the week before Christmas break, we did a candygram sale, and we donated all the profits to Tots for Kids, so children can get stuff for the Christmas year. And then, as Ms. Ferrer said, we have the Annie play in spring, so auditions should start soon, or if they did already, I'm not sure. And we have a new thing, Eldred Pride Friday. Sadly, the seniors are terrible with it, and we didn't win the pizza, but we're gonna try.
I think it was 7th grade.
Try hard. But yeah, there's a lot of nice academic and sports stuff. Eldred Pride Friday, you have to wear like Something Eldred. Yeah. Teachers are better than the students, I gotta say.
It's true, yes.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. The student body's doing good.
Perfect. Any questions? All good, thank you. Mr. Carpentier.
Thank you, Mr. Halleck. So keep it short and sweet here. Attendance continues to rise. Academically, Leader and me, committee members, will be receiving training on February 8th, which is great. Our MTSS, we have a site visit with Livingston Manor tomorrow. They're going to come and look at what we do for MTSS, especially literacy and RTI. Our units of study and our literacy, we're continuing to work with our coaches to improve our instructional strategies, and I think we've seen a nice little increase in our STAR scores. So I've had grade level meetings today, and I have a few more tomorrow, and we saw significant increases across the board in every grade level on our STAR scores, which is great to see. And observations continue to occur in the building. Our winter clubs start next week. Odyssey of the Mind competes next in March 2nd. We'll have 2 teams competing this year, which is really exciting. And the readathon, you may have saw back in October, the students at GRM read over 40,000 minutes. So I was able to get slimed and then also dunked, which I'm sure you saw. And yes, we did have a couple of elf sightings around the building right before break. So our holiday cheer is up as well at GRM. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Any questions? All good? Very good. Mr. Russell.
Nope, I think,
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Mr. Krebs.
I got a couple of things. I'll
See, I
keep
brought my
it
glasses, I didn't put them on.
short and sweet, too. I just want to give a shout out to Dr. Englund and Mrs. Costa. They've been working to put forth our frontline Medicaid program so that we can build back for our providers such as speech, OT, PT, our health services for students that are on Medicaid, and we started the process. We've applied, got a letter back from them that we need to add a couple of other things, and that process is in place. So that they're really working well. It's quite cumbersome. So I was not understanding what the Medicaid billing process was until I got involved in it and saw how much work it is. So they've kind of taken over that. I want to thank Ms. McWilliams and Mr. Latini. Mr. Latini helped out the Leader and me at Mackenzie Elementary School and provided some assistance in printing posters that were put up around Mackenzie Elementary School. And lastly, 2 days ago, the governor gave her state of the state address. She addressed a term that's out there called the science of reading. And yesterday I went to a conference webinar day at BOCES. All the BOCES in the state participated in a presentation called Literacy Briefs, and what the state was going to present for our goals for literacy. So the day yesterday surrounded around goals for literacy, things that they expect schools to do from pre-K all the way through 12th grade. So more to come on that. That's all I have to share with you this evening.
Very good. Any questions from the board? Yeah. All good? Thank you, Mr. Krebs. Mr. Russell.
okay, let's turn this on. I always feel like my voice is louder than it really is. And then no one can hear me. All right, so the main thing I have on my agenda today is the tax cap came out. There's one more piece of the formula, but it never swings very much. It could go up or down by 0.2%. Right now it's at 3.96%. That's got 3 components. The 2% that everybody talks about, that's our inflation bump. 0.81%, that's new property. That actually won't raise taxes. That's the difference in last year's valuations and this year's valuations just for the new buildings coming in. So you could raise taxes 0.81%, and your bill should stay the same, equalization rate aside, because that I can't control. And then 1.45% of it is due to an expiring pilot. So the compressor station we have, but the pipelines that the compressor station feeds had a pilot. That ends this year, so we got I think it was $26,000 actually. I have 145 on there, but that was a mistake. That's got the Eldred Preserve in there. They give me 16 of that. So this is our last payment. This works the reverse of the compressor station, unfortunately. So with the compressor station, what happened is that went on the rolls, so everybody's taxes dipped, and then it went into our tax cap. This is the opposite. It goes in the tax cap the year that you get your last payment, but it doesn't go on the rolls until the year after. So this would be a real tax increase. I do recommend you go to it though, because we're losing, that's not just revenue that you don't get, it's revenue you lose. I'm not going to get that check anymore, and this is to make that up. It will be a 1-year hit on everybody. And taxes will still go up slightly next year, even if you go to 2%, because what will happen, it's only about one and change percent. So what would happen is if you raise taxes 2% next year, they'd only really go up 0.8% instead, just because of the timing difference. And that's a difficult thing, and I know it's a hard sell, but it is money that is gone. And we're not in the flush age anymore of the coronavirus cap.
They were in a pilot program, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
The pilot program's done.
And that's the end. It just doesn't line up perfectly with when it goes on the
There's a
rolls.
one-year gap.
That's the unfortunate, because we don't run a calendar year like the towns and villages
Right.
do. Transportation, he already hit on this. This is the only one in there that I would start on right now, and Missy can work on for next year, is we can give you guys information on what 5 runs would look like how much increased time that would be. And I'm sure you'd try to run it to keep it so they're not walking as much. So I don't know what that would look like. It might be 5, 10, 15 minutes. We don't know. She'll figure that part out. Facilities, we have some new information that isn't on this. It was after I did the board report. Our boilers all went down pretty much. So what ended up happening is Sunday night, power outage of the night, 2 boilers went down. One is a result of a fried circuit board. That board is obsolete. It's not purchasable anymore. That is going to cost between $8,000 and $15,000. We have 3 options. 8 gets it back to where it was. 15 will give us some significant energy savings. It's a little more upfront. It's got a 4-year payback based on if we get the percentage that, and this is not the salesman telling us the percentage, this is Dean from BOCES, he's the HVAC specialist there. He said what he's seen, Livingston Manor has a similar, it's an auto flame. They use a similar system. They said they've seen 20% lower fuel costs. For us, that's like 12 grand a year. That would be if you did all 3 boilers.
Electronic ignition.
Correct. That would be if you did all 3 boilers. So we're only going to see something like 8 to 10% on the one. So it'd be about 4 years to pay it back. We spoke with Aileen Gunther today. She said there may be some capital money available. If I can get the money for all 3, I would do all 3 right now.
Well, did anybody look into see why that circuit board fried?
Yes, so I'm going to get into that next. Yeah. So there's a couple things going on. One, we don't have any surge protectors in there. 2, this biodiesel, has nothing to do with the circuit board.
Nope.
But we're having issues with that too. Now I just lost my train of thought.
Circuit board, why it fried?
Why the circuit board fried? I don't know, what were you?
Well, I was just thinking maybe it's on the power company.
No, it's definitely not.
Well, we have no surge protectors on them?
We didn't have a surge protector on it.
You ain't on a power company. We had a surge protector on it, went to half power. That could fry a circuit board.
It never had a surge protector on it, and I don't remember exactly why he said it went down now. What I was going to get into is the second boiler went down. Is an issue with this new biodiesel stuff that they've got going in there. We've gone up to 5%. The state mandated it during coronavirus, and they just kind of snuck it in there. But apparently without this additive, which costs $2,000, which we're going to be putting into it, but it costs $2,000 a load, it causes a lot of rust and corrosion in the boilers themselves. So the one was like leaking, and we needed to replace a pump on it. That's something we're going to have to look at in the future. They're going to see how it works with the additive.
So New York State switched 70-30. Kerosene 30% kerosene, 70% diesel.
No. Now it's biodiesel. It's some kind of synthetic diesel made out of plants.
And they did it in 20.
And they're moving to 20% biodiesel. Right now it's 5%, but the Trojan Energy is the contractor we used. But Dean also had a picture of like one of the pumps that they just had. I think it was Rondout Valley or one of those, but they said 3 days the thing got rust in it. So that was what happened to the second one. So we're looking at a hefty repair bill. If I can get the money from the assemblywoman, I would do all 3. It would cost $45,000. That's only if they were 100% paid outside money. Because if we do, we'll save about 20% on our fuel costs. It's $12,000 a year.
And we will find out Monday. I have a call into the Eileen's office in Middletown on Monday to ask if they have any discretionary funds they can give us for this year prior to the budget passing.
Yeah.
Because she said we can ask up to, for small projects where they just give us the discretionary funds, up to $50,000. So on Monday, I'll have an answer whether or not they have the money, and if they'll say, yes, but we had a good conversation with Eileen and 2 of her aides.
She's very good for us, Aileen.
She is.
She's very
She's
good for
always
us.
been great for us. And then finally, this floor outside the cafeteria it's due. I don't think we can hold it much longer. It's breaking up. You've been in there. It's almost all tape at this point. If you've ever walked down that hallway, there's tape
Are you
everywhere.
looking to do that in the summer?
Yeah, I'm just looking for we're going to have I'm getting together some financing options because I'm going to try to get it paid for as much as I can. But that's where I'm at with that right now. I'm trying to find a financing source. I think Tracy will end up talking to you. We'll have a little more information in February. There's a few options, and it's going to be in your court. But
Okay.
that is all I had in there. Oh, and our transportation aid's going down. I'm sorry, it's all bad news right now.
Yeah, you have those ups and downs.
I didn't mean to be the bearer of bad news, but yeah, with the pipeline going on, that is probably going to reduce our transportation aid from 36 to 31 because it pushes us into the next. They have 3 different formulas they use and at different levels of wealth, and we've hit the next level, so we'll lose about 5%. 5% of we have aidable 1 million, so you're looking at like 50, 60 grand they're going to take. I haven't gotten the state aid reports yet. They don't give them to us till February, so I don't know what they're planning to give us for state aid, but 60 of it might not be there.
We'll continue to do exactly how we've always done it. If we're going to hit the tax cap, we will let everybody know if their house is worth this or
Absolutely.
what the number's going to be. People don't want to hear percentages. They want to how they're going to hit their pocket. We've done that. We've done that for the last 6 years, so we'll definitely do that.
When I get to
with
that
this.
point, I always put out, this is what it's going to cost, and then I like to put out the per thousand, so you can take it and just multiply it by how many thousand your house is worth.
It's worked out well for us in the past. Is you all done?
That's me. That's it.
I guess we've all answered all our questions with it,
Nope,
right?
I have more.
Do you?
Yeah. The boiler repairs.
Yes.
Okay, so for all 3, to completely repair all 3 would be a cost of around $45,000.
So that wouldn't be actually a repair. That would be an upgrade, and I would only recommend that if we get it paid for.
Right.
The one needs to get repaired. One was already repaired. A little bit of a Band-Aid type repair.
I remember that last year.
The one that with the bad circuit board has to get repaired. The cheapest I can do it is, he said, about $8,000. That's a status quo repair. Puts the boiler right back to the state it was in. Just a new circuit board, different brand because they don't have the that type anymore. The 15 is a more fuel efficient system with about a 4-year payback.
Right.
On the
Okay,
difference.
but all 3 are still currently, even in the state that they're in, even if we spend the least amount to repair the fried circuit board and don't do any upgrades or anything, all 3 are still susceptible to not having surge protection or having the additional additive that is creating havoc on the pumps, correct?
No, the additive we're adding now.
Okay.
So Mike Skokas, he ordered that and is having it put into every delivery we get.
Okay.
It is going to raise our cost, but it's well worth it because these
Yeah.
repairs get expensive.
Yeah, I don't want to throw good money after bad.
Yeah, it's going to
Or
cost
bad money
about
after good.
$4,000, between $4,000 and $5,000 a year, depending on how many deliveries we get. But yeah, so we don't necessarily have to repair the other one. They wanted to bring up the biodiesel thing. They said right now we can kind of use the additive and see how that works because our pipes seem to be in good shape. But
Do we have the remaining 2 boilers on surge protection now?
We are going to add that.
we're definitely adding it. I don't know if they're on it at this exact moment.
Okay.
We're definitely adding it. I know that.
Okay.
But whether
Then
that
they replace the circuit board that going bad, they are adding a surge protector to that one. I don't have the cost for adding the surge protection for the other 2, but it'll get done. Again, that is, for me, that's more not an upgrade.
Right.
Yeah.
That's a necessary, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
And just to alleviate your concerns, this was just on Wednesday. They were just in Wednesday, so
No, I understand.
you know we're definitely looking to get the surge protector.
Mother Nature doesn't work on the same timelines that we do, unfortunately, but, okay, thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else? All
So
good?
do we want Caleb to present something next month for the reserve?
For the reserve.
Yeah,
For a capital reserve and how to
for
fund
the
that.
capital reserve and how to fund it.
For our intentions
For
for
attention to the.
transportation.
Yeah, bus ride, yeah.
For, transportation.
Yep,
Okay.
yeah, you can do
Can
that.
you do that?
Yes, I can. Just gonna-
Okay, that's all I have.
Okay. We're getting into some cold weather here next week, so hopefully that ice rink will freeze out there.
Well, I gotta
Water
pump it
is your worst enemy when you think something is level. Water will tell you you were wrong. Go look at that, and we are wrong. It's not as level as we thought it was. So next year, we're going to make some changes, but that's all I have is that hopefully the ice rink will be frozen, and it's open to the public for parents to go on it and teach their kids how to skate, and the kids can skate, and
We'll have a good time.
the men want to get a hockey team going at a certain time. You know, it's there to be used. So hopefully it freezes and we can enjoy it. I just thought it'd be something extra for the kids and the parents to come do.
Yeah, just bad luck.
I'm sure,
We've had
yeah,
nothing but
well,
rain since we put the thing.
and it's probably overflowing on the other end. Yeah, oh, yeah. All right, that's all I have. We've been here long enough tonight, so. Public comment on the consent agenda items only, on this consent agenda, public comment. Any public comment? Yeah?
8.03, well, could you explain that a little further?
Hold on. This is a public comment. I have to get an approval for that, and then we have discussion on it. Public comment on the consent agenda. Nothing? Okay. At this time, I will take a motion to approve 5.01 through 8.06.
I'll make the
consent
motion.
items. Motion by Stacy,
I'll second.
seconded by Amador. Discussion.
8.0, could you explain that a little further, what happened?
Yeah, so there'll be 3 more. I don't know exactly what happened. I get them from the real property tax, so it's not a mistake on our end. So it's either at the assessor's office or in the county office. They either type, actually in this particular case, I believe what happened is this building had burned down and they forgot to update the assessment that the valuation was lower. But we get like 4 or 5 of these every year, and I'll be honest, they probably belonged on here and weren't going on here before. I used to just pay them, and Doreen has a wealth of experience. And so she came and said, hey, Caleb, you know, these are supposed to actually go on the board, but they come from the county. They're not on our end. We get this form. I don't know if we have them here, but it comes from, I think Chris Knapp is his name, is the head of real property taxes up there. And he says, this was approved by a judge. You've got to change the rolls and refund them.
I
The
just had a
difference.
question. I didn't think it was on us. It was on the company that we hired to do.
Oh, yeah, it definitely wasn't.
Okay. Any other discussion? All set? Take a vote. Nancy?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes.
Stacy?
Yes.
Amador?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Any old business to come before the board? Any new business to come before the board? Second public comment, whoever wants to talk about anything. All good? Good.
With all this money that we're spending, do you think it would be a good idea to do a financial forensic audit? To put another set of eyes on everything?
Well, hold on. What do you two are on the audit committee?
Yeah, we are.
And
Yeah.
you're on, does Jim G still attend them?
Yes,
Yes.
it does.
And with Caleb?
Correct.
So what kind of audit you looking for?
Just like another set of eyes on everything as this money's going out with the buses and
Well,
everything.
there's 4 people on an audit committee right now.
Yeah.
So you looking to have an outside committee, outside
I know
company?
it's costly, but
We do have an
Yeah.
annual auditing firm.
It is an outside
It is
firm.
an outside firm.
It's
that- Cooper Areas.
Cooper and Areas.
Yeah, Cooper
We
Areas.
get that every year, to sign for that.
Yeah.
Not for the audit thing, but we get that from them to sign that there's no,
No, yeah, they
That's
they
right.
audit us every
Right.
year. Yeah.
What you guys could consider, so a forensic audit is usually if you know exactly what you're looking for, like, so, I'm sorry, I'm gonna get into semantics. An internal audit is probably more what you're looking for. Schools with 1,500 kids or more need them. If you guys wanna discuss, a lot of schools have them. They have a second firm, and their job is to come in and make sure you're not overspending, that there's you know, you're checking your bills and making sure you're getting charged the right amounts, like, because I used to do that actually for a living before this, and you'd come in and say, okay, are they making sure that their vendors are following all the rules, not overcharging them, adhering to all the bid stuff, or they'd come in and each quarter they'd pick an area that they think is someplace that you could do better and improve your functions, and that sounds closer to what you're looking at?
We do also have somebody that is unrelated to the school district that does review all of our warrants and our bills.
Joe Milan.
And he makes sure he signs off every month. That we.
Wind up in this.
Yeah, no.
We all good? Any other? All good? At this time, I'll take a motion to enter an executive session for personnel.
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Second.
Motion by Christie, second by Stacy. Our next meeting, put my eyes on here so I don't get this messed up. Next meeting will be held on Thursday, February 8th, right here at 6 p.m. Thank you, everybody, for coming. I intend there'll be no business after executive session, and all be safe getting home. I'm sorry it took a long time. This is way longer than we normally go, but I knew there was a lot of stuff to discuss tonight, so everybody that's got a long ride home, our administration, be safe.